Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is FrSky Steve. I'm looking at this photo here, remembering what a nice day this was the other day when I went out flying, and I just snapped this photo right at the field. Hey, this is going to be a video about useful Ethos hacks, and these are things you can set up yourself, and I'm doing this so that you can get an idea of how to put these things together. I swear to God that sometimes I'll show them a video, and I'll show, for example, one thing, how to use call out VFR, and someone will say, well, yeah, I want to call out RSSI instead. Can you make a video on that? And I'm like, it's just one other value change. So when I get to the area, I'll show you some other options you can have. In the meantime, let's get right to it. This is going to be a really nice video. There's a lot to cover in this video. And so we're going to start talking about things that we're going to cover. So the first one is a telemetry call out from the back buttons on your transmitter. And as I pull up this lovely X18RS in Chameleon, you do notice that there are two buttons on the back of the transmitter. Those buttons are designed to do anything. They're momentary buttons. You can press them in and you can let go of them, and they do absolutely nothing until you tell the transmitter you want something to do with them. So you may wake up in the morning and say, what does FrSky Steve like to do with those buttons? Okay, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do with those buttons, and that you got it out of me. One of them is going to be set up for your timer, and the other one is set up for the 900 megahertz call out. So we are going to go take a look at the transmitter. Oops, wrong one. Oh, here we go. Transmitter's right over here. And as you can see in the transmitter, we have this 8-minute countdown. So that's whenever I turn off throttle cut and the countdown timer will start. And somewhere during the flight, um, it's kind of off, and I'm like, how long is this 8 minutes? I mean, I'm flying around. Do I have a minute left? Do I have 5 minutes left? And I don't want to look down at my clock right here. You can look right down and you can see the countdown right here if you look away. I have this tendency to have planes that like to disappear on me whenever I'm not looking. They just take off in the sky and go somewhere else, and I never see them again. So I kind of keep my eyes on the planes. I wanted that button to call out how much time I have left so that I don't run out of battery or get surprised or whatever else. And sometimes I'm talking to somebody and then I'm like, oh, how much time do I have left? I press a button and I know. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, the first thing we're going to do is go into model. By the way, I'm not going to be setting these things. That was a bad press. It's a short press on the model. Go to this next screen here. Go to special functions. And this was the 8-minute call out, right? So this should look somewhat familiar. I'll take you through it quickly. If you long press on it, it goes into edit. So that's how I got to the screen so quickly. We're going to talk about that in a moment. It's a play audio is the action, state is enabled, and it's switch I. So that's one of those two round buttons on the back of the transmitter. And you can see it's a down, which means that it's whenever it's pressed in, this thing is true. The problem is with these buttons is that they're momentary, which means there's a spring in there for them to switch off whenever you let go of it. So this is very important. If you have this going up, that means it will only be true when that whenever the switch is not happening, which is not pressed in, which is probably all the time for you. So you would be in a constant state of having the radio tell you the time. So you want to make sure that it's down and set up a voice. And what it was the 8-minute countdown, and that was the value. How did I find it? It was under, when I went in there, I scrolled down to timers and source, and then you can see there's also telemetry and trainer and all sorts of other things you can do. So whatever you can fill in here, that's what it's going to call out. Okay. And I did not turn haptic on. Maybe I'll turn it on. Just a little bit of fun. Make sure you always use skip on startup. Now, when I press that button in, switch on, if I were to hold it in, you'd see this go from red to green, and then when I let go of it, it's no longer active. So that's what that is showing you. And this is essentially the same thing for the VFR. Only difference is that when I went down here, instead of, you might have noticed it's on the other screen, it's another play value, and it was, the last time we had timers, this time it's telemetry, and you can select any of these telemetries, including your LiPo, your altitude, your vertical speed, any of these things, the current, GPS clock, airspeed, if you have any of these things. But I selected the VFR, and there it is right there. That's how we got that going. So if you want to use any of those other things, if you have them in your plane, an active telemetry, go right ahead. And so what that does for me is whenever I'm flying around, I'm going to do long press, get out of here. Whenever I'm flying around, and sometimes if I'm far away, I'll press the button to see how strong the VFR is, which is valid frame rates, which is your link quality. So we want high numbers, close to 100%. And my local field, when I was flying around, I could barely see the plane. It was about 98%. So very, very good link quality at the field for the planes that I like to fly. Okay, we're going to go back now, and we are going to talk about repetitive callouts for flaps. So this is the second one we're working on here, and there's two reasons I like this. You won't forget to raise your flaps. Or actually, yeah, raise or retract your flaps, I should say. Oh, let's fix that. Won't forget to retract them, and the other thing, not too often to be an issue. So it's not being played too often to be an issue is the way to describe that. And so we're going to go transition right back into this, and we're going to look at, how did I set this one up? Well, once again, it's in models, and instead of swiping this, I just hit page down and go right into it. So this should be somewhat familiar. When you set up flaps, you set up an audio call out for the flaps. So it's just the switch position. There's videos we put out. There's quite a few videos on how to assign a sound to switch. And this is the basic setup. As you can see, SA middle is the active condition, and it's on right now because it's green. If I press A again, it's off. And what will happen is that when you're in this position, every 30 seconds, that is the big thing right there. Everything else is, let me show you this before we get into that other thing. This is the file. I just play file, and the file name was flaps1. And whenever this is deployed, it will shout out flaps1. And okay, everything looks good. Usually what happens on these, one other thing, skip on startup, always have that on. Okay, now, typically when you set this up, repeat is once, right? What I did is I just changed that to 30 seconds. And because of that, what happens is every 30 seconds, it reminds you your flaps are down. Me personally, I do it every 15 seconds because I don't usually fly with flaps down on a lot of these planes other than for landings. But some of my gliders, I like to have flaps down. So on the gliders, it would be every 30 seconds, so it's not too annoying. And all I did on this one is I clicked on it, hit clone, and I went back in here and I changed a couple values. I changed flaps 1 to flaps 2. Actually, and then the switch position, instead of being in the middle position, it was the down position. Okay, so we're down with that one. Let's get back to our screen here. And we're going to do number 3, gear down reminder, in flight only. So this one is going to be a bit of a setup for us to do because the problem with having a gear down countdown the same way we did the flaps is that every 15 or 30 seconds or however long you set it up for, it's going to be calling out that your landing gear is down. And the problem with that is that you might be stuck at the gate waiting for someone to land, and then every 15 or 30 seconds you get this call out, and it's annoying, and you just don't really want that. You just want it to be active when you actually are flying the plane. So what I decided to do was create a logic condition which lets me know that when the throttle is raised a bit, it is time for that's one of the conditions, and then the gear being down, the landing gear switch being down, is the other condition. So with those two conditions active, we can have this be true. So the reason why this is a little more complicated than most is because we have to go in and, I love when I leave my stuff out. Long press on it, go back to where we're at. All right, so go to models. We're going to use two different logic conditions. So next to special functions, logic switches. And the first one I want to set up is throttle is greater than 90%. And let me show you what that means. We're going to go back to the mixes, and I believe it's the elevator. Okay, this is negative 100%. This is negative 90%. So when you are less or greater than negative 90%, you're going to be all the way up here. So you're going to everything from here on, whenever your throttle is raised, this is your throttle all the way down. It has to be raised up a little bit, but when this is active, this will be true. So we're going to go into, well, back to this section in the logic switch, and we're going to look at it. Okay, so you can see that right away it's true, and that's because I left my throttle up. Bad, Steve. All right, now we fixed it. The throttle's down, and it's about as simple as you said. Greater than A is greater than X. What is A? A is your throttle. X is negative 90%. So the question is negative 89% greater than negative 90%? Yes, it is. So anything from negative 89% all the way to positive 100% makes this true, which means that I put the throttle up very slightly, and then all of a sudden this becomes true. So that is the first logic condition. Someone asked me, what do all these other things do? Why don't you talk about them? So, I mean, you can, I can set up notes in here and things like that. Um, these videos are long enough, so no thank you. The next thing I'm going to do, you can see this is where the notes go. Activates throttle with a switch H. So it's trying to remind me that I need to use a switch as well. And that is going to be, the big thing here is the and function. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in here, long press, and this is a very powerful thing. It means and. Two things have to be true. So one of them is that the first logic switch we just showed you has to be greater than negative 90%. And the other thing is switch H, which is your landing gear switch, has to be down. When those two things are true, this is true. So I'm going to put the throttle up, and I'm also going to press switch H, and you can see it's true. Now, I'm going to move the landing gear down. I'm sorry, I'm moving the throttle down, and that means it's no longer true. But if I move the throttle back up, it becomes true again. And then on my landing gear, if I were to retry the landing gear, it's no longer true. But the moment I have the landing gear come down, it is true once again. So two things have to be true at the same time. Okay, so when all we're really focused on is this right here. When that becomes true, we go to, get out of here, and we go into special functions. And for whatever reason, I had to set up a new computer, actually. My old one died right around Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and I've just got finished setting this up. Really cool computer. I'm really enjoying it. You can see that the active condition was a logic switch. So I was going to say that some of the voices are missing. One of them that I'm missing is gear down. And so we're substituting the voice gear down with the file being a play file and the file being the takeoff one. Okay, so that's how we do it every 15 seconds. And you can see that it's true because both conditions are true. But all I have to do is bring the throttle back down a little bit and it's no longer true. Bring the throttle back up, all of a sudden the voice will fire off and it would say, if it was the right voice, it would say gear down, gear down, gear down. And it will remind you as you're flying, hey, it's time to raise your landing gear. Okay, now the last one is one of my favorites. So I'm going to show you how we set this up. Let's transition back over to this. This is called the low VFR info screen. I think it's mega cool. This is how I set it up. I set up a config screen and I set up 4 different values. One of them was RSSI. Actually, both of them were RSSI. This one was RSSI and this one was RSSI minimum. This one was VFR and VFR minimum. People ask me about RSSI. People get freaked out about it. I almost think it's like a light meter. It kind of lets you know when your light meter starts to go crazy. It usually means you're getting into more light. When your RSSI is going crazy, it means with high values you're getting towards a radio signal. When it starts to get lower and lower, it means you're going away from a radio signal. I don't really read too much into it other than it kind of lets me know where I'm at. The one I really pay attention is valid frame rates because that is link quality, and I set up a minimum on that one as well. Hopefully we can get in there and show you how to do that. Actually, I'm going to take you there right now. So what I wanted to do is set this screen up, and now that I have the screen set up, let's take you out of here. And we're back into here, and we're going to long press. This is your screen. This is where I set it up at, and that was the second screen I set up. And to config the low values, the minimum values, all you had to do was long press on this and select minimum. So it was essentially, this is identical to this. All the thing that's different was I select that little ticker. One more time, it's right there. Long press, you can see it. Okay, now we are going to look at there's no logical switches to this one. This one's actually just a special function. So it's this one right here, special function number 5. Go to home screen, edit. Actually, I lied. There is a logic condition to this. And the logic condition is called low VFR. So you can see logic switches, low VFR. This one's actually very easy to set up. Surprised how easy this was. We're going to go back out of here and we'll go to logic switches. And the low VFR, all I did was created one that was A is less than X. A is VFR and X is 60%. So when VFR is less than 60%, go to this screen and so you can see in real time how strong your link signal is. And if people stress out about the link signal, the VFR, the link quality, this should be a pretty helpful tool. Unfortunately, I can't really test it well because the darn radio system works too well, and I was flying about as far as I possibly can see my plane just so I can test this thing out. And I don't think I dropped below 70% in my field. So, one of these days I'll get to test it out. Anyways, you can change the value. If I moved it up to, let's say, 85%, I'm sure that at some point in the flight that it would flip over to this screen. Otherwise, the way you get to the screen would be long press on this. All you have to do is press the page up, page down. You can go back and forth toggle with this as you're flying. Okay, so if we go back to models, short press, here we go. Go page up, page down. Once again, logic switch, you can see edit. There's no way for me to test this out. I'll show you how it works, how to make it go green, because we have no receiver hooked up to this virtual plane. So imagine this turns green. And we're going to get out of here, go back to special functions, and I was showing this to you before. It's pretty simple. All it is a command called go to screen. and you have to enable it. And then what I did was I chose a logic switch, and the logic switch was low VFR. So the logic, whenever VFR drops below a certain value, maybe it's 80% or 70% or whatever you can get where you're at, whatever is concerned for you, the screen will change. And it's kind of a cool little tool to have, especially if you're trying to trace down an issue with a receiver or something like that. With all that being said, I do thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Otherwise, have yourself a great day.